Hey everybody, today Rahdo talks through an update for This War of Mine, which is a very cool narrative adventure game that I did a run through for about a year and a half ago when it was on Kickstarter. And back then I had a prototype that did a pretty good job of approximating what the final experience was going to be, but now I've got the full retail game, and I have to admit I have played it a lot. And so I figured I'd spend a few minutes today talking you through what has changed, what is different from the original. If you've watched the run through and you're wondering what this is, you'll know what's new. And also, I want to take the opportunity to demonstrate one of the core features that I could not show you in my original run through. Right, so here we are set up. Now, this is in the middle of a game that I'm already playing. I'm on day 3. And for those of you who don't know, This War of Mine is, well, like I said, you could call it a narrative adventure game. Basically, this tells the story of a Civil War ravaged city somewhere in the world. It's not named, probably some eastern city or something like that. Think Sarajevo, think something like that. And in this game, we do not take on the role of brave, noble soldiers or cutthroat mercenaries or generals or humanitarian aid relief like you expect in most games. In this game, we're just regular people trying to survive. We are the citizens of this city, and all we're trying to do is just stay alive until a ceasefire happens in this civil war. And the game itself generally lasts. You can't be sure exactly how long, because as part of setup, you make an event deck. This is going to be the event of the 3rd day, then the 4th, then the 5th, and then the 6th, after we have a chapter break, and then the 7th, and then the 8th, and then the 9th. Oh, I might have lost track now. But anyway, and then there's another chapter. And now, one of these 3 final cards is the ceasefire. It might be the first one, so we could end very quickly, or we might have to live through 2 more days. We can't be sure how long this civil war is going to rage for this last about a week and a half that we're trying to survive through. So, but anyway, the core game hasn't changed at all. You can hit the eye in the top right corner of the screen, and you'll be able to watch me run through a setup kind of similar to this. It's different, but the game is broken into 2 halves. First, during the day, well, first of all, we have an event that tells us, what happened. Then, during the day, we do worker placement. We have our band of survivors. They're living in this ramshackle, rundown house, and worker placement style, I could say, hey, this one's going to come over here with our shovel and dig through the rubble. And this one's going to come over here and work on boarding up the hole using the last of our resources. And this one is exhausted, is going to sleep, it's going to take a nap in the bed so they can get some more energy. And this one's going to go down the basement and poke around and try to find some lumber so we can burn it in our heater or whatever. Or this one might go outside into the street so that hopefully they can meet a visitor who might help us. Or might not help us, you never really know. Or this one might move over here to an empty space and use some resources we've got to build a rainwater collector, or a deadfall trap to catch food, or a stove, or a moonshine still, or an herbal garden, or a reinforced door, which is something at the beginning of the game we didn't know how to make. But at one point, somebody came over here and had an idea, which let them pick 2 more cards out of this deck, which become additional things that we can build on top of the stuff we've already have built. Now, like I said, I'm at day 3. I've already built a bed. I've cleared out a lot of the house. There used to be rubble here, a locked door here. I've gotten through there. Somebody's about to come over here and search through this furniture and hopefully find some food or some medicine or something useful, because maybe this is a bathroom, who knows. And we've picked this door. We have some saw blades, so we sawed through this bar to get to this furniture. We've done a bunch of stuff, but there's still a lot of exploring to do in the house. And during the day, you spend an equal amount of time trying to explore, but also trying to build stuff and try to make a life for yourself in this house. After you do that, and each character can do an action in the morning, at noon, and in the afternoon, unless they are tired. And suddenly, they can only do a morning and a noon. They can't do the afternoon action. Or maybe worse, maybe they're really tired level 2. Now they can only do something in the morning. Or, maybe they get sick, which for, level 1 sickness lets them only do 2 actions. Level 2 sickness lets them only do 1 action during the day. So over time, they get these different statuses built up that mean they can do less and less, unless you feed them, or you cure them, or you heal their wounds, or whatever it might be that you have to keep. You have to keep these people alive. But anyway, After the daytime, we then go out at night. Depending on whether we go to the nearby place or places that are further away, we get a bigger and bigger exploration deck of cards. And this becomes kind of a push your luck dice rolling game that how far will we explore? How much noise? Because the more noise we make, the more likely we are to be heard by the residents of, well, in this game, Central Square, the hotel, or the supermarket. And these people, they might attack us. Or maybe they'll talk to us. Maybe they'll actually help us out. You never really know. But the longer the game goes and the more desperate people get in this war-torn city, the more likely they are to try to steal from us. Because, hey, we're scavenging around in their backyard. Arguably, we're trying to steal from them. Because we got to stay alive. It's survival of the fittest in this game. But anyway, so the game, in the morning, the day you do the worker placement. At the night, you do the push your luck exploration stuff. And it's all to collect more and more resources that you can use to stay alive, to build stuff, and survive to the end of the deck. That's the core game. If you want to see how it plays out, like I said, hit that I, and you can watch me play through a full day and a full night in a setup similar to this. But there are some differences, and now I'm going to tell you the big changes from that original run-through. And you might have already picked up on, if you watched the run-through, you might have already noticed a couple differences. One is the fact that it is now an action. Somebody has to spend time having a new idea. It's also an action to go outside and risk sniper fire to meet visitors. So, in the original game, at the end of the day, after we'd done all our work and we'd eaten and whatnot, before we went out at night and scavenged, there was always going to be one visitor every day, guaranteed. And everybody, there was always, I think you drew 3 and you got to keep one random idea. Now, having an idea and having visitors does not automatically happen every day like clockwork. It's a little bit, instead, you have to make it happen. Somebody has to spend time to sit down and have an idea. And instead of just randomly drawing 3 and picking one like the original prototype I did, now you just get to go through the whole deck and pick any 2 you want, because you thought hard and very specifically. A lot of the changes that have been made to the game have been to reduce or remove a lot of the randomness that was in that original prototype. You have a lot more control over the simulation in this final version than what I demonstrated for you before. And there's no better example of that than instead of just drawing 3 and picking one randomly, you instead spend time to do it and get whatever ones you want. So that's a big deal. The visitors, you have to spend time to get them. That's a big change. Another change is this new deck of cards called the Fate deck. This did not exist before. Before, if you watch my run through, you'll notice that near the end of it, at the end of the day and at the end of the nighttime, you have to roll dice a lot. You have to roll dice to see if people get sicker, if people get more wounded, if people get hungry, if people get thirsty. You just have to roll and roll and roll, and just tons and tons and tons of rolling on what used to be called the Fate die. And it was a lot of rolling. I actually complained about it, I think, in my original run-through. There was just too much dice rolling. But now, instead, all of that dice rolling for all the different fates that could befall our group of survivors, it's all summarized into a single fate. Every day, at the end of the day, or actually, right before the morning, right before dawn, you draw a single fate card, and you do what it says. And this walks you through all the stuff that used to be a good 4 or 5 minutes of dice rolling. It has all been summarized in one thing. And then after you've done it, and sometimes people get sicker, sometimes they get better, sometimes locations disappear, and certain events will happen based on the personality traits. Everybody has an A, B, C. I drew this one, so everybody's A personality trait was going to happen. Erica, our cat burglar, the criminal, who's actually our MVP. She's our most valuable player because she's very good at sneaking around at night because she's a thief. She's jonesing for cigarettes. If we didn't have cigarettes, she would become miserable. So if I drew this, the A means I got to give her cigarettes to keep her from becoming miserable, because misery can kill you in this game. Zlatia, the university student, if we had a guitar, she would now play the guitar and lower everybody's misery. But unfortunately, we have not found a guitar. So, but anyway, nothing bad happened, nothing good happened. Anton, the professor of mathematics, if there's at least one book in storage, and we do, we actually have 2 books. We give him a book, so it will will lower his misery because he'll read a good book. Actually, the game even says what the books are if you read the small print on here, which is a nice little touch. But he'll stay up all night reading, so it'll raise his fatigue by 1. His fatigue is going to go to 2. And unfortunately, he had no misery. Anton, he's addicted to books, the professor of mathematics. So he made himself tired and didn't even reduce his misery. So that wasn't good. And Svetya, our school headmistress, this was really interesting. As when I set this game up that I was playing, I'm in the 3rd day now, you start with 3 random characters. Randomly, I got the music student, the professor of mathematics, and the school commissioner, or headmistress, which I thought was really cool. Clearly, these 3 people all knew each other before it starts. When the fighting started, they all came here and are hiding out in this house together. And then before too long, Erica, the thief, joined us as well. And all of these people, these 3 people who knew each other from academia are now teamed up with somebody that they would have been afraid of before, and they're all trying to survive together. It's amazing the stories that develop in this game. But anyway, Svetya, if a character in the group is injured, then raise her misery. She is a very empathetic person. She's a headmistress. If somebody else was hurt, it would make her miserable. The more miserable she gets, the more likely she is to just disappear in the night. And she leaves and never comes back. Or worse, some people, if they become too miserable, they'll actually kill themselves. But anyway, so nobody's hurt, so she's fine. We had cigarettes, so that was the fate card. But it could have been a fate that said B or C, in which case different combination of things happened. Before, you had to roll a lot of dice to see what happens. Now you just draw a single fate card. These are amazing. This so streamlines the gameplay. I can't stress how great an enhancement it is to the core game. It's interesting, the notion of visitors and ideas not happening automatically, but instead you have to spend time to do them, makes the game harder, because now, that's time I'm not spending in the workshop or whatever. So that's interesting, but it does make it more realistic. It just never really made sense that every day, like clockwork, somebody was going to show up, no matter what happened. Now, you have to go out and find people instead of people finding you. So it's an interesting change thematically. Let's see, is there anything else? The fate cards have changed, the visitors and the ideas have changed. There's a few little functions here and there that have changed, but for the most part, everything else is still the same. You dig through rubble, you search, you build things, you have more and more stuff. I'll probably talk a bit more about the changes in the final thoughts. The nighttime exploration is almost exactly the same. Very little has changed about that. But there are a couple more things that have changed. There's a whole new stack of cards over here. When I did the run-through, all there were the events that happened every day. Now, every time you set the game up to play a big epic storyline, there are 3 objectives. There's always the final objective, which is always survive. To win, you have to survive. But in this game, we also have to worry about helping the sick and wounded in our area and dealing with the fact that the army is going to try to disarm us. These are 2 additional objectives. Now, we don't have to do them, but if we fail to achieve this, remember, this is my Chapter 1 objective. Before Chapter 2 comes up, which we have a few days to do it. When Chapter 2 comes up, we resolve this. And we either get a reward if we successfully help the sick and wounded, or we get a penalty if we failed. So, in addition to surviving and everything else we're doing, we're also trying to collect medicine and bandages to help the sick and wounded in our neighborhood. After we're done with that, we got to find a gun. Either find one or buy one or get a broken one and repair it ourselves, because the soldiers are going to demand that we give them a firearm. And if we don't, there will be stiff consequences. We will get beaten. But if we do give them firearms because they try to disarm civilians, we will have a night of peace, where the soldiers will actually protect us because they think, okay, well, these people are okay, they're giving up their guns, we'll take care of them. Or they think they didn't give up the guns, whether we had them or not, they will beat us. One of those 2 things is going to happen, and this will happen much later in the game, right when we get to Chapter 3. So we know these are things we have to be working on in addition to everything else we're doing. These objectives are a real game changer. They really mix things up, because every time you play, you're going to get a different combination of objectives that are going to push you in different directions. Normally, right now at the 3rd day, I've already collected 2 bandages and the meds. I could complete this right now. There's a little marker, but I'm holding on to these as long as possible in case we need them. But I'm eventually going to have to make a choice. Do I give these up or do I save them for us? So, there's interesting new elements that have been added. These objectives are great. The fate cards are great. But otherwise, I think you can go watch the original run through. There's a few other things, like a big one is every day, at the end of the day, when you have to feed and give water to your survivors, before, 1 water would take care of everybody. But now, everybody needs their own water. And if they don't get water, they will either go hungry or they'll become more miserable. You can't be sure what's going to happen. And again, that could kill them. So we need to collect more water than we used to in the prototype I did. There's a few other changes. And like I said, most of the changes are to get rid of randomness, to make fewer dice rolls, which is a big, big improvement overall. But anyway, the nighttime stuff stays the same. Those are the big things for the daytime. And, here's one more thing. Actually, I didn't get a chance to show you this in the run-through I did originally. You may have noticed, hey, I've got cigarettes, I've got a shovel, I've got a saw blade, I've got food, I've got bandages, I've got water. But what are these? I have an A and a D. There will be times during your adventures that you will come across what are called reality impacts. Every time, you might have a reality impact when somebody visits you. Because you went, or when you go out and try to find a visitor, you might get a reality impact. An event could trigger a reality impact. Searching through a pantry in somebody's house might trigger a reality impact. Getting, at night when raiders come to steal our stuff, that might trigger a reality impact. In almost every single deck, there's 1 or 2 reality impact cards. And when you discover one of those, that's when you've got to go to the book of scripts. This is ridiculous. In my original run through, I just had a few printed out pages of maybe like 24 stories, but for the final game, this book is crazy. There are over 1,900 individual stories that you can, some long, some short, that you can experience throughout. Every time you discover a reality impact, it tells you, there's a little thing you have to go through to figure out what you end up reading, and you come here and you read. Often, they will give you moral choices where you have to make tough choices. Not simple choices where there's an obvious answer. Every choice in this game you make is difficult. And then you read another snippet to find out what happened based on what your choices were. So, reality impacts happen a lot. And one of the interesting things is, sometimes reality impacts will say, hey, based on the choices you made, you get new items. Items that are not one of the regular tokens in the game. By the way, this is really interesting. The insert for the box insert services as a token divider so you can keep track. Hey, here's all our miscellaneous stuff. Here's all our weapons. Here's all our food. Here's all the attackers we might run into. Here's all the status tokens. Here's all the components and whatnot. So occasionally, you'll read a story and it'll say, hey, you know what? You have found a new special item. Make note of what it is, and here's the rules of how it works. So you take one of these. And in fact, I have found 2 special items. Now, I'm not going to tell you what these are because I don't want to spoil it. You might find these yourself. But I will, if you want to look it up yourself, we have found, because this is our save game. I'm about to talk about this in a second. This is how you save your progress while playing the game. And I made note. When I got this item, it's item 1316. I'm not going to tell you what that is. It's cool. It's really, really awesome. It was kind of funny. It's interesting. For the most part, this is a very grim, somber game, but sometimes there are moments of sunshine and happiness that comes through as well. But anyway, that was 1316. If you want to know what it is, and then, I now have this. This is something that I can use. I could trade it. I could do all kinds of stuff with it. If I forget exactly what it is, I made note of what it is, but if I need to know what the rules are, I can come in here and turn to item 1316. Further back in the rule book, and I can remind myself what it is. This other item we've got is item, where is it? 586. Again, I made a note of that. This item is amazingly cool. We absolutely love this. We are so lucky that we found this. We risked a lot to get it, but it was worth the risk paid off. So we've got a couple of those. These are things that changed the game. But up here, you'll notice there's another one. In the original run-through, this is where you collect cold tokens. The colder it gets, the more danger you are of getting sick and dying. And so cold builds up here. I will tell you what this one is. We had a reality impact event that told us this is the worst winter on record. It's colder now than it's ever been in living memory. And because of that, we had to put an item up here. And if we wanted to look up, if I need to remember what the rules are, it's 481. But basically, it told me, write down cold +2, 481 for item A. Well, this could have been item E. It could have been B. There's a bunch of these in the miscellaneous things. So if we find another item, I will label it item I, and I'll write down what item I is. But anyway, so this is a particularly cold winter. And what that means, if I ever need to look it up, I can go back and check item 481. But basically, at the end of every day, when we have to do a cold check, And the fate used to be a die roll. Now the fate card says what to do based on how cold it is. It is permanently, this represents +2 cold. It is really 3 cold now, not just 1. Because we are, in this game that I'm playing, I have to survive through the coldest winter in living memory. It changed the way I play. Normally, I don't make a heater, let alone an efficient heater, this early in the game. I save that. Maybe I'll play a whole game and never make a heater because I can control the cold in other ways. But now, because we have this permanent +2 that we can't get rid of, I changed up my strategy, and it made me, one of the first things I did was I had an idea to learn how to make the efficient heater, and we built a simple and the efficient heater so that we can keep the cold down because we can never get rid of this. And because this cold will kill us. So it's changed the way we've gone. And so these items that you can get out of the storybook have the potential to radically change. Every time you play the game, you'll always be in the same house, although the locations will be different. You'll never be sure exactly the stuff in the house. The locations you can search through. You never know exactly whether you're going to find the hospital or whether you're going to find the military base. In this game right now, there's a hotel, a square, where we can engage in trade. This is an awesome place. The supermarket is there as well. So these events can change things up, these special icons. The objectives radically change things. This was something that was not in my original run-through. So the game overall, I will just say right now, as impressed as I was by it when I did my original prototype run-through, I'm super impressed now. But if you want to know more about that, you can go on and hit the I and follow the show notes to go hear my final thoughts. I got a lot to say about this game, good and bad. But there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that is the save system. I already mentioned it a little bit. Because, as I was finding these items, I had to make notes of what they meant. But this is a way that I can save my progress, because the reality is, this war of mine, to make it through a full story, can take anywhere from 6 to 10 hours, maybe even longer. If you're playing with more players and everybody is slow and they spend a lot of time deliberating about how to make your choices and whatnot, it can go a long time. And it's recommended not to try to play through an entire story in one sitting. That is not the way this game should be experienced. At the end of every day, you have the opportunity, and it reminds you here, the journal, I mentioned this in the original run-through, the journal hasn't changed much. It's pretty much the same. It's a flow chart that just walks you through how every day and then every night works, and you just play by constantly going through and just following the instructions and making decisions when you're told to do it. So this really simplifies and streamlines it. The whole point of this war of mine is you're supposed to be able to open the box for the first time, punch all the chits out, and just read this and play as you read and not have to memorize 20 pages worth of rules before you start playing. Now, I'll talk about how well that works because I've played this a lot by myself as a solo game. I've also played it with I played it as a 3-player game now. So I'll talk about that experience and gallows humor and all that kind of stuff in the final thoughts. But anyway, one of the things it tells you to do at the end of every day, hey, after dawn, before we go on to the next day and have another event, you can save your progress. And I'm going to show you right now how to save your progress because it's hugely important and I think it's brilliantly implemented. I'm really, really impressed by it. Although, you know what? Actually, no, before I do, there's one more thing I should mention that was not in my original run-through. I don't know if you noticed, but hey, there's the hotel, the central square, the supermarket. These are locations like they were in my original run-through, but hey, why does the supermarket have 2 moonshine, a mechanical part, and a weapons part sitting on top of it? I'm glad you asked. There is another feature of this game. One of the things that has changed about the journal. The journal, when you are in the evening, this tells you probably almost everything you would ever need to know. But sometimes, maybe one evening out of 10, something comes up and you're not really sure exactly what to do. And if you have more questions, if this doesn't tell you everything, it tells you, hey, look at the evening FAQ in the book of scripts, entry number 500. Or if you look at the scavenging, it says, if this doesn't tell you everything you need to know about how to scavenge that system, you can look up and get more information in entry 600. So if we find the book, like I said, most of the entries in here are just story. They're dramatic narrative, very well written, just lots of twists and turns and surprises. But occasionally, as you flip through, you'll notice, hey, there's this darker stuff. Those are the FAQ section. Let's find that 600 for scavenging. If I have another question about scavenging, and it wasn't in the original book, I can come here and read all of this additional information that will probably 9 times out of 10 answer that question I had. But so the game is designed so that if you don't need to know it, they just don't tell you because they don't want to overload you with rules. I'll talk about that in the final thoughts as well. Some players are going to hate that. Some players are going to love it. But I'll examine that. But anyway, an important thing here is, hey, here's all these additional FAQs about scavenging. But on the second page, if you look really close, right up there, almost in small print, it says, Advanced Rules C534. And you're like, Advanced Rules? What does that mean? So, now you don't have to. And the thing is, you might have scavenged a dozen times and never had to come in here and look at the FAQ, which means you would never know about the advanced rules. But now that I've stumbled across it while playing, I come over here and I check out the advanced rules, and here's the entry. You'll notice it is not highlighted to let you know this is rules because it says clearly, you have discovered 3 hidden advanced rules. The advanced rules for hiding findings at locations, more inventory, and exchanging locations. These are 3 advanced rules. You could imagine there are 2 ways you could play this game. With the normal rules, which is basically what the journal tells you, but there's an expert way you can play that has a whole bunch, probably like a dozen or so additional things you can do that makes the game more complex. And what the developers decide to do is literally hide those advanced rules. So when you first start playing the game and you're kind of overwhelmed by all the stuff you can do, you don't have to be overwhelmed by advanced stuff as well. But there are additional hidden rules hidden here in the Book of Scripts. And one of those hidden rules is, after you're done exploring a location and you have to go back to the house, of course you have weight restrictions. You can only carry so much stuff back. And so often you end up having to leave things behind. I had to leave mechanical parts. The last time I went out searching the supermarket, I had to leave this moonshine, mechanical parts, and weapon parts behind because we just couldn't carry everything. It weighed too much. So in the original game, without the hidden advanced rule, these just get discarded. They go back, in the insert, back in the item tray, and maybe you'll find them in the future. But there is an advanced rule where you can say, I'm going to hide these in the supermarket. And the next time we go exploring, instead of going to the square or the hotel, if we come back to the supermarket, we roll the die, and I think there's a 30% chance that these might still be here. So it's a 70% chance they'll be gone. Somebody found them while they were scavenging, they're gone. But I don't know, I think it's a 1 in 3 chance, hey, they're here, we can get all our stuff. Now, this is not a rule that's necessary to play the game. You could play the game many times and never do it. But like I said, this is a new concept. There are hidden advanced rules in the game. And I'm playing with them because I've played the game a lot. And I've discovered, I think, most of all the hidden advanced rules. And it's a cool rule. Chances are when I come back, oh, they weren't there. They were stolen anyway. But there's a chance. And it's interesting. It changes my strategy because maybe I want to go to the square, but I also want to come back to the supermarket and get these things because I don't want to abandon them. So it adds more depth to the gameplay. But anyway, like I said, I'll talk about that in the final thoughts. But anyway, so that's it. I've talked about what's new. Oh, one more thing I should talk about what's new, actually, is the app, which my phone has fallen asleep. Let's see here. So the game comes with a downloadable app for your smartphones, your iPhone, your Android, or for Windows PC if you want to use a laptop. And the app does a bunch of stuff. Now, I'll really talk about this. I'll talk more about all the scavenge mini games and the lockpicking mini game and all that in the final thoughts. But the most important thing about this app that's so important, when the journal told me to look up item 600, I could flip to the page and try to find 600 in here and wherever the heck it is. I can't even find it now. There it is. And then flip back and forth between the 2 pages and look at all this stuff. And then, 534. Well, I can go and find that and look up more information. Or I can just use the app. And I can type in 600, boom. And hey, here's all that information in an easy to digest, hyperlinked database, including, like I said, hyperlinked. So when I get down to the bottom and it says advanced rules, instead of turning to page 534, I can just tap this and boom, hey, here's the advanced rules. So this, I have to say, I love this app. I mean, I love the book. I love the physicality of it. I love holding it. I like reading from a book. Obviously there's something just very comforting and nostalgic about that. But I have to admit, I've stopped using this because the app so streamlines the gameplay because it's just so quick and easy to look things up. That I wouldn't go back to the book. So the book, unfortunately, is gathering dust. I just use the app all the time. And like I said, the app also has some other features too. I'll talk about those in the final thoughts. Right, okay, you've been very patient. Let's put this game away. I'm about to start day 3. I'm about to see whatever this event is. Oh, let's just sneak peek. What is it? It's bad news. Everybody's going to get more miserable. This is going to be the first thing that happens to us. I don't know, maybe the president was assassinated and we all become more miserable because that means we don't know when the fighting will ever stop. Anyway, though, so bad news is going to happen, but we're pausing the game right now. So here's the way the save sheet works. So, we've got a whole booklet of these. We've got a bunch of them. So you can save lots of different games. And in fact, the publisher has made these available so you can download them on their website and print them out. So you can print one out and laminate it or just print out as many of these as you need. The game came with some. But anyway, I've already made all the notes I need to make. There are 3 holes that have to be plugged. I've boarded up this hole and this hole. This one hasn't. So I've noted that I've boarded up those 2 holes. I have cleared out a lot of these rooms. And so I've left all these blank. So I've just noted where we still have cards. I've noted there's still furniture here. There's still a heap here. There's rubble here. There's rubble here. There's a locked door here. There's furniture waiting to be searched. I guarantee after we deal with this event, first thing is somebody's going to come over here and search through this furniture and find us some more good stuff. So I've made a note that there is furniture in this space. Not in this space because I've already cleared this furniture out and I can see that right here. So I keep track of what all the cards are. I just make a quick little note of what's still on the board. If the next time I save the game, I'll just line through this furniture or I'll just erase it or whatever to indicate that this space is empty as well. But I've also made note that, hey, I have built the workshop and I put it here. That I built the bed and put it here. That I put the heater and the heater upgrade in these spaces. So I'll know where these go the next time I set the game up. I also made note, here's my 4 characters that I've got, and what are all their status. Zlatla has 2 fatigue and 2 hunger. Poor Svetya here has 2 fatigue, 3 hunger, and 1 illness. So I've noted all of that stuff. So next time I play, I'll be able to put them back in the status they're in. Of course, I talked about this earlier. I made notes of what these little special icons are because I don't want to forget them. They're really awesome. And I also make a note that I haven't done anything on this objective yet. I haven't contributed 1, 2, or 3 things yet. Right. And so this just takes a couple of minutes to make note of what the status is, and then next time I save my game, I'll just update this. Eventually, I'm going to close this other hole. I'll mark that it's closed. I'll cross out some stuff. Maybe I will have built some more things. The status of my characters will have changed. Maybe one of them will have even died and been replaced with somebody else. But anyway, so I make note of the status of everything. Now, I take all my goodies. The game, interestingly, comes with 2 big plastic bags. The waste bag and the save bag. And now this is interesting. In the original run-through you saw me do, the save bag, it was a plastic bag, but it had silk screened on it, save game. And the waste bag had waste. And I'm really kind of bummed that's not there. At the time I thought it was kind of silly, but now I kind of miss it. So this is the one place where the final commercial product is not as nice as my prototype because they did not actually put in the information there. But anyway, though, I'm going to save my game with my save bag. That means I take all of our stuff and I just dump it in the bag. In the bag. Let's put the dice in the bag. We've got 1 cold. I put that in the bag. I put this in the bag. All my stuff. All right. If this were close to the edge of the table, I would just slide them all off into the bag, but I'm having to reach across the table. So here we go. All of these things just go in the save sack. Right, so here's our inventory, so we'll be able to set this up. Might as well put the objective status in here as well. And these little color markers coincide with the bases. This is a very standard main thing. So these go in here. And all of the status markers go in here. So this is just a bag where I put all the tokens of all the stuff we've got. Plus that one narrative, whatever it was, the duty card I've got. Right, oh, and my board ups. All right. And let's see these things. And the stuff that's hidden at the supermarket. I'll put this in here too. But I did make a note that at the supermarket, the 2 parts and the moonshine is hidden. So that I know when I set back up and I put all these cards back out, I will take the 2 moonshine and the parts and put them back over here because I made a note that they were here. Right. Oh, and the noise counter. Okay. And there's my characters. So seal this bag up. This is the state of the game. This plus this tells me everything I need to know to set up the game. This other bag, the waste bag, this is everything that we've encountered that after encounter it says removed from the game. Plus it's some other stuff that was never going to appear in the game because, of course, not every objective and not every event is going to be in the game. So the objectives and events that aren't in the game, you just put in the waste bag. So I know this is stuff that is not part of the game. This is stuff when I set back up, I'll put it back where I found it. Now, the last thing I got to do is just collect all the cards. Also, these night raids have, during the crime wave, they have not been added to the main night raids, so these are waiting to be added as well. So they also go into my save game because they haven't been added yet. Now, I just got to start putting stuff away. So let's put my characters, I'll just put them over here. And all the other characters that we haven't met, we'll just put them right there. And now you'll notice, so this is, like I said, this is an insert. It's also a token divider. And you keep all these tokens in place by just taking the cards, just stack them up and slap them in. And, come on. Except when I'm trying to actually film it, somehow it's never happened before. There we go. And these cards will hold those tokens in place. And the board, once I fold it up, will hold those cards in place. So let's just keep on. All right, let's gather all of the cards that make up what's in our house. And we don't have to worry about keeping these in the right order because remember, we noted that on the save card. So here's all the stuff that's in the house. Let's just put those right there. And let's start getting these stacks of cards. Now this one's kind of a tricky thing because you want to keep your ideas separate from your fittings because otherwise you might forget which things you've learned and which one you haven't. Now what I could do is, I could have actually written down, never occurred to me to do this before, I could have actually written down that we have learned build reinforced door and the heater. Or we know we have the heater. If I just make a note that we have learned build and force door, then I don't have to worry. In fact, where's my pencil? I can't reach, here it is. I'm just going to make a note. We haven't made any progress and we've learned reinforced door. All right, so cool. So there. Now I know how to set these decks back up. And let's see. So we'll just put those there. And now we got to make another stack of cards. And we'll put those there. And another stack of cards with all our locations. Plus the characters we're actually playing. And they'll just go in right there. And now, all right, so that's a little bit lower. Let's spread this around a little bit. Right, let's keep these are the ideas we've had. These are the ideas we haven't had. So that keeps these kind of separated. Those straighten out a little bit. There we go. Cool. So that's all in place. Those are all in place. And now I go on ahead and put the insert back in the box. And now I fold up the board. Now this is interesting. I didn't know. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Here's a surprise. This is a two-sided board. This was the house that I demonstrated in my original run-through. But on the other side is a whole nother house you can play in that changes the game up. This is the advanced board. And advanced doesn't mean it's harder. Playing this game doesn't make it harder. In some ways it makes it harder. In some ways it actually makes it easier. This one is just more complex because buried under the rubble, in this double rubble, in this heap, and behind these bars and through this inaccessible area, there's all these things. There are a lot of new special items that you can use that aren't like poking around. There's a wild garden you can find in your backyard that has a chance of generating herbs. So you don't have to build your own herb garden. You've got one, but it doesn't guarantee produce like the one that you could replace this. Or you can you can collect water in your own backyard. You don't have to do it while scavenging. So there's some additional functions. Another interesting thing as well, if you go outside to meet visitors, you don't have to worry about sniper fire because you don't walk out into the street. This has like a little enclosed area and you don't get hit by snipers. But if you come up the ladder up here to the roof, there's a hole open in the roof. If you come up here to search through this heap, or if you build things up here, because this house is tinier, because of all these special cases, you have fewer places that you can build your equipment. So you might have to build it up here in the attic. And every time a character comes up here to search or build or use an item in the attic, they come under sniper fire. So instead of getting sniped when you try to get visitors, you get sniped when you come up into the attic. So, it's the same function. The sniping function is exactly the same. It just happens in a different place. So this is a whole different board that doesn't change the game. It just gives you a different experience. And in fact, you can see it says right here, read the, let's see, what is it? Entry 610 to learn what the new rules are for this board. And again, even if you don't own the game and therefore don't have the book of scripts, you can just download the app and then read entry 610, and you'll learn more about this new board if you want to. But anyway, got to put all this away. So we're still just saving our game. Everything is now held in here nice and tight. And so we've got our book of scripts, we got our journal, we got our save game, we've got our waste, the stuff that we've already gone through, and we've got our goodies that we still have. They just kind of sit here like this. And, right. Oh, one other thing. Did I mention this? This was another thing that comes with the game. They're Endless Night and Last Day. These are two alternate ways to play. These are special missions. Like I said, playing through the full game takes about 6 to 10 hours, which is why you save the game, like what I'm showing you, so you can play in increments. Playing through the Last Day or Endless Night takes about 3, maybe 4 hours. So these things give you accelerated, where you start out halfway through a campaign with special rules. Like Endless Night is very interesting. There's been so much bombing that the sun is blotted out. It's perpetual night. There is no day. And that changes the rules of how to play the game when you play the Endless Night scenario, which is very, very cool. And it takes place in half the time as a regular scenario. So it comes with these as well. You put it all back in the box, and you're saved up, ready to play again in a few days, or next week when your group gets together, or whatever it might be, or tomorrow night. Now that may have looked like it takes a long time to save, but it really doesn't. It took a long time because I was explaining everything as I went. The reality is, putting this game away and saving your game doesn't take any longer than any other game. Doesn't take any longer than putting away Eldritch Horror, or Legends of Andor, or Agricola. And setting this game up, it would be super fast to set up. I just pull this stuff out, I set up the board, and all these cards you saw, I just put them back in their appropriate spots. I put all of our resources we've got back in their original spaces, and then I just start playing. It takes in my experience, now that I've done it a few times, if I'm not explaining every step of the way, it takes probably a couple of minutes to put the game away, or maybe 3 minutes to put it away, and maybe 1 or 2 minutes to set up a perfect save system. And that's it, folks. There's my update for what has changed with the commercial retail version of this War of Mine. Now, like I said, if you want to see how the core game plays with a few changes, go check out my original run-through for the prototype, and you'll be able to see the differences. Or if you want to hear my experiences having played this quite a bit now, including by myself and with other players, you can go hit my new final thoughts. I got a lot to say, folks, so get comfortable. Your choice in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.